Welcome to this seminar, which is going to revolve around the life and times of Rani Gaidinliu. We're also grateful to the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library for organizing this one-day seminar, as well as the Ministry of Culture for putting so much of interest in the life of Rani Gaidinliu. The little-known fighter, as we see her, identity movement and politics of ethnic assertion in Northeast India. This will be a presentation from Dr. Kamei Aphun.
Today, the topic that I have chosen is called Of Little Known Fighter. I'm trying to locate to a historical time where in that period of time, especially in the early 1920s, the wave of nationalism was very, very strong. And at the same time, Rani Gaidinliu was very popular amongst the community called Zelengrang. But today, if we have to problematize, we identify as someone of very known identity. I would identify rather is to talk more about the significance of the movement, as I've talked about early 1920s, the world events in the 19th century. What are some of the important events or incidents that occurred around a similar time? And the last two questions are why movement fail and how movement still continues today, perhaps in different forms. In the early 1920s, the wave of nationalism was quite strong already. In India, since 1885, Indian National Conference, popularly called INC, was established by educated middle class. This organization was meant to interfere or to intervene in the British style of governance and administration. Around the same year, among the American intellectuals, especially the then President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, had been propagating the idea of self-determination, and that ultimately boosted the morale of many subjugated or the minorities in that period of time. We have also seen in the early 1920s the Chinese Revolution, which was called the labor movement, that brought changes in the urban China landscape. At the same time, again, in Britain, soon after the World War I, women particularly are empowered and independent. If we remember, the short hair, the short skirts, and also women started driving perhaps in the early 1920s in the Great Britain. Likewise, the wave of reformation, socio-political movement, intellectual renaissance, growing nationalism, a beginning of new modernity have been spreading all over the globe. My starting point is that how a small spark of fire has touched a very uneducated lady who perhaps did not understood what is the meaning or to define what is state and the emergence of a new modernism. What I see is that the post-independent period emerged the interface between state and society that produces three historical junctures. The first is the process of homogenization or assimilating of smaller cultures, communities to the more dominant or superior culture. The second, the ethnic assertion for differentiation, which produces conflicts and ruptures. And finally, the challenge to how harmoniously diverse communities and groups can coexist. However, In such a situation, it is unfortunate to witness some societies or tribal groups being merged with the so-called mainstream or consequently losing their own cultural identity. It is against this backdrop that I intend to look at the dynamics of ethnicity and ethnic assertion, especially in the northeastern region of India. The paper focuses on the Zelengrang Nagas in Manipur, Nagaland, and Assam and their quest for ethnic identity. What we see is that in the early 1920s, particularly in that community, the society was perhaps closed. So it was almost ready to open up, and there was this anxiety which Rani Gaidinliu foresee. Many Naga traditions pointed Makhel in North Manipur as their original homeland. The legends, the rituals, and the traditions of the tribe refer to their coming out of a hole or cave in the earth called Taubai at Ramting Kabin, a deep gorge between the two hills which are deep and dark. What is interesting to see is that the tribe came to be known by various names in the course of their migration. The name Jamai was derived from their settlement at the hill range, which was the frontier of the Zelengrang habitat, frontier or periphery as Jena or Inje. From this, the people were known as Jamai or Injemai. The people who headed towards the northern direction came to be known as the Liangmai. The southerners came to be called as the Rongmai or the Marongmai. Thus, following the whims of the more powerful and daring adventurers amongst them, many of them started migrating batch by batch to distant hill ranges which attracted them most. The southerners, called Rongmai's settlement in the valley of Manipur is worth mentioning here. It is because of the fact that they are referred to as Kabuis, probably a term given by the Meiteis of Manipur. The process of migration in the valley continued, and it was during the reign of King Garib that the Meiteis in the valley converted to Hinduism. Since then, Meiteization came as a response due to their dominance in economic and cultural sphere. For instance, anything that Meitei did become the valley way of life. The Loi Chakpa, that is other ethnic groups in Manipur, Yaitibi, started to use Singh, spelled as Singh, as their title, just like the Meiteis. They have sacred places in their houses like them, and even the hill tribes followed. The Rongmais in the valley started adopting a religion like that of the Meiteis. Such process, the newly converts considered everything anti-Christian and started challenging the traditional faith and cultural practices. Probably the greatest damage done to the people was the abolition of the Morung system, which is the dormitory system. This institution was considered to be the center of their indigenous culture and practices. The abandonment is responsible for the disintegration of traditional values, music, and dances. This means that the British brought along many constructive changes. They brought also a new religion with a new identity of the people. The traditional chorus, drums, music, folk songs, and dances are slowly replaced by the modern Christian hymnals with guitars, keyboards, and Western drums. The translation of the English Bible into the vernacular dialects, though encouraged reading and writing, produced three distinct languages in the course of time, which challenged the very foundation of the common ethnic identity. The independent India witnessed resurfacing of ethnic assertion from village identity to communitarian Zelengrang identity. This is because of the fact that under this new political system, the various ethnic groups who had diverse culture, language, faith, and beliefs had to come together under the same rule of law. When such diversities are bounded under common territory, a crisis of adjustment follow. It is because of the fact that each tribal village acted like a little republic, quite independent and self-sufficient. So when the new political system challenged the hereditary chieftainship, customary laws and practices, so in that way there comes a confusion. Under the new political setup, each ethnic group compete and struggle for ethnic survival. Land became the exclusive property of the state. Laws and rules are then formulated and enforced. Those groups who adhere to these rules and regulations are accepted and recognized. Therefore, politics of identity started interfering within the society. However, the setback still remains as the tribe was divided into the various states of Manipur, Nagaland, and Assam, and even in some parts of the present-day Myanmar. The struggle for unification of these three kindred tribes was first started in the early 1920s by a visionary man called Jadonang. Born at Kambiron or Puiron in the present-day Tamenglong district of Manipur, the village was a strategic place as it served as one of the resting places on the Manipur-Kasar road. On a regular basis, he observed the British officials, missionaries, soldiers, and traders from Manipur, Assam, and neighboring regions moving to and fro through the highway route and understood them. Around the same time, the hill tribes with the British conquest of Manipur in 1891 were directly administered by the British officials. The British started imposing house tax which the people had never paid even to the Manipuri Maharaja. New systems such as Pothang Bekari, sometimes written as Begari, and Pothang Senkai. These are perhaps the new economic systems introduced by the British. These were also institutionalized by the British, which really hurt the sentiments of the Zelengrang people. These systems of free services and taxes greatly affected the economic life of the already poverty-ridden people. Furthermore, these hilly people were imposed with oppressive forest laws by declaring restricted forests or reserved forests, which prevented them to use and consume forest products such as bamboo, cane, and other useful trees which are used for making houses and other domestic purposes. Their habitat is a source of identity which any individual could easily relate to. Moreover, the people were asked to render free services for repair and maintenance of government roads, bridges, and dams, and the British government failed to protect the Zelengrang people when the Kuki rebellion, a rebellion by the Kuki tribe broke out between 1917 and 1919 in Manipur. By this time, there was huge Kuki migration into the land of Zelengrang regions. This had created huge insecurity on the minds of the people. On the one hand, there was disunity, inter-tribal and inter-village feuds, and on the other, the social and religious practices of the people were full of taboos and superstitions. Meanwhile, Christian missionaries have already gained momentum in the hills of Manipur, and as a result of it, many people have already converted to Christianity. In the valley, there was huge Meitei expansionism who began their rule as acts of invasion and subjugation on the hill tribes. They imposed duties and demanded payment of tributes, rendering of forced services to the Maharaja. The hierarchy in the society left many people hurt when they were labeled with derogatory names such as Haus, Jingmis, Amangba, and Amangbi. It's a notion of purity and pollution. Against these prejudices and discriminations, Jadonang started a movement which came to be known as the Zelengrang Movement in 1925. The outbreak of the movement was a renaissance to Zelengrang people because it touched almost all aspects of the collective life of this tribe. However, Jadonang was arrested and imprisoned by the British for proclaiming himself as the king and for declaring the impending end of the British Raj. He was then released but re-arrested on 19 February 1931 and hanged on 29 August 1931 for the alleged murder of 4 Manipuri traders. Jadonang was succeeded by his disciple Gaidinliu when she was barely 13 years old. She used Gandhiji's name and Jadonang's songs in order to mobilize the people. She propagated that the British would be soon driven out with the help of Gandhiji and Nehru. It was believed that she had contacts with the Indian National Congress, the Bengali Congress workers of Kasar district, Assam, and sympathizers from various other tribes such as Mao, Maram, Thangal, and Angamis of Kunama. Pandit Nehru came to know of Jadonang and Gaidinliu's movement during his tour to Assam in the winter of 1937. In his article, The Surma Valley, the Daughter of the Hills, he described the rebellion against the British imperialism and called Gaidinliu the Rani. Since then, she has been called Rani Gaidinliu. Rani Gaidinliu followed the aims and objectives of the movement, which was left unfulfilled by her mentor Haripura Jadonang. She propagated for securing socio-economic development of her people, trained young boys and girls, and fought the British with courage and vigor. In February 1932, they attacked the Assam Rifles patrols in North Kasar Hills in a broad daylight, and this has received a huge attention among the British. The British armed forces in retaliation burned down several villages, including the village of Bapungwemi in Naga Hills. The Manipur government announced a reward of rupees 200, later increased it to rupees 500, and exemption of house tax for 10 years for anybody or any village who would give information leading to her arrest. Finally, she was arrested on 17 October 1932 under the leadership of Captain MacDonald of Assam Rifles at Pulomi village and was awarded life imprisonment. Unfortunately, Haido was arrested in May 1934 by the Assam Rifles of Henima in Naga Hills and was killed. Likewise, Ramjo was arrested in July 1934 and died in the jail. Several leaders like Dikyo, Gomhai, and Areliu were also imprisoned by the Assam Rifles. The matter of movement against the British and the arrest of Gaidinliu came up for discussion in the British Parliament. Nehru requested Lady Nancy Astor, the first lady member of the British House of Commons, to get Rani Gaidinliu released from jail. Pandit Nehru further urged Premier Gopinath Bordoloi of Assam to intervene in the matter and get Gaidinliu released from jail. Bordoloi was helpless as the Naga Hills district was at that time in the excluded area, which was not a part of Assam, and Manipur was a princely state. Likewise, the Akhil Manipuri Mahasabha of Manipur, presided by H. Irabot Singh, demanded her release in its annual session at Imphal in 1938, but Manipur government refused to consider the demand. The Haripura session of Indian National Congress Party in 1939 under the presidency of Nehru passed a resolution demanding the release of Rani Gaidinliu, but again failed. When India got independence, the first Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru wrote to the authorities in Assam to release the freedom fighter, and ultimately, at continuous intervention of the Prime Minister, the officials agreed to release her, but on one condition, that she lived outside Manipur state until further orders. Rani Gaidinliu spent the next few years at Yimrap near Makokchung village in the present-day Nagaland state with a pension of rupees 15 per month. This was after her 14 years of confinement in jail. Thus, there came a point of time when Zelengrang Movement suffered a big blow with no successor. The struggle to continue under various organizations demanding for integration of all Zelengrang inhabited areas under one administrative and political unit and recognition of the tribe as Zelengrang in the scheduled tribes list in the Indian Constitution. The post-independent period witnessed many changes in the Zelengrang society. The period between 1960 and 1993 was marked with a lot of political and religious interfaces. By the end of 1950s, the Naga National Council was gaining momentum. The beginning of 1960s witnessed a conflict between Zelengrang Movement under Rani Gaidinliu and the Naga struggle for independence under AZ Fizo and T. Sakri. Rani Gaidinliu was labeled as Indian Rani, and her religious beliefs were questioned, describing it as worship of spirits. To respond to it, Gaidinliu had to adopt twin objectives of preservation and promotion of the Heraka cult against the growing of new faith among the Nagas. However, a clash occurred between Gaidinliu's forces and the Christians at Tausiem in 1966. This incident was misinterpreted by many as if the movement was against the Naga cause. However, the fact remained that Rani Gaidinliu was not against Christianity as religious institution, but was against the early converts per se, who abandoned the rich culture and traditions of the Zelengrang Nagas. The demand for Zelengrang political unit as a district, union territory, or state was expressed by the Third Conference of the Zelengrang Leaders of Manipur in October 1980. They demanded for the integration of all Zelengrang areas into a political and administrative unit at Tamenglong. The conference elected Rani Gaidinliu, perhaps in her absence, as the president of the Zelengrang People's Convention, popularly known as ZPC. On 7th June 1981, ZPC adopted the official slogan Zelengrang Ringtelo, which means long live Zelengrang, and subsequently submitted memorandums one after another to Prime Ministers of India, Srimati Indira Gandhi, Morarji Desai, and Rajiv Gandhi. The delegations met Mr. Bajpai, former MP Lok Sabha, Mrs. Sheila Grewal in 1985, former Principal Secretary to Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, Mr. Bhuta Singh in 1986, former Home Minister, and many representatives of Government of India. The Northeastern Council, NEC, under the guidance of the Planning Commission, was instructed to study on the problems and developments of the Zelengrang areas in 1985. The then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi directed the Department of Culture to entrust the Anthropological Survey of India to make a thorough investigation on the Zelengrang cognate tribes, Jemai, Liangmai, Rongmai, and Puimai, and came out with a report that from linguistic and anthropological view, they belong to the same group of people. Despite many commitments and assurances, the government of India did not come up with any concrete solution on the issue of integration and recognition of the name Zelengrang. Then came the conflict between Kuki and Naga and Zelengrang regions in 1992, and the political activities and demands remained standstill. The movement again suffered a big blow with the death of Rani Gaidinliu on 23rd February 1993 after a prolonged illness. Therefore, we see a sea change in the Zelengrang movement in the search of their own identity. The struggle, which originated in 1925 to drive away the British, took the way to integrate the tribes and demanded for recognition of Zelengrang in the list of scheduled tribes in India. The movement attracted a lot of attention both at national and regional levels. It became a part of syllabus of NCERT textbook in the study of national movements against British colonialism and has included a chapter on Jadonang and Gaidinliu's struggles. Besides a title, Rani Gaidinliu was awarded with Tamapatra in 1972 by Indira Gandhi, Padma Bhushan in 1982 by the then President of India, and also Swarna Vivekananda Seva Award in 1983, and many more. The government of India issued a postal stamp in her memory, and Rani Gaidinliu's Tri Shakti Puraskar Award was started by the government of India in her memory, which is given on every March 8 to veteran women social workers in recognition to the selfless sacrifice for the society. However, the demand for integration and recognition of the tribe in the Indian Constitution, though continued to be discussed and debated at the Prime Minister's level, but was repeatedly turned down. Meanwhile, the continuous projection of identity was hit hard by several external forces such as migration, colonialism, conversion, meta-expansionism, politics of identity, impact of modernization and globalization. Even the widest claim of Anderson's imagined community seems to be a distant reality for the tribe. Following the tense contested course, the Zelengrang people today are divided into the state of Manipur, Nagaland and Assam and some parts of Myanmar, and the tribe as the Zelengrang, though there is common solidarity among the three cognate tribes, is not yet included in the list of scheduled tribes in India. Therefore, the study of identity and ethnicity in Northeast India is a complex phenomenon as it is an interwoven issue of several entities. On one hand, there are primordial questions, and on the other, there is an entity of social construction which is in a fluid state. As Stuart Hall suggested, cultural identity is a matter of becoming as well as of being, and in the process of becoming, it gets diluted. As identity comes from somewhere and undergoes a constant transformation, it can be understood as a process as put forward by Jenkins. In this way, there is always a narrative identity which is to be passed on, and any society will sustain its identity only through a continuous process of such projection. Crisis of identity arrives when the society ceases this projection. Likewise, due to the abandonment of traditional source of identity, Zelengrangs today are faced with the challenge to revive and assert their ethnic identity. The need to preserve and protect traditional cultures, festivals, and its rituals are constantly and consciously being felt by the people today. Thank you so much.